schools are underfunded and children are underserved, and they're living in chronic trauma, chronic stress, and the conversation sort of looped back and forth about what we understand with PTSD, trauma regarding soldiers, and then children who aren't post-traumatic stress. Some of them are in constant traumatic stress. And one thing led to another, and there was a question and answer session. And so I raised my hand and I said, I'm really, really interested in this for the work that I do, for the community that I live in, as a mom, all of that. And so afterwards, this beautiful woman walked up to me and she said, this is my passion. I really want to be able to talk about this at schools because we're not handling any big traumas or losses correctly in school systems. I'm paraphrasing you, but what I heard was we can do better, and there are ways to do better. And so I thought, I'll take your brochure, and I did, and it was nice to meet you. That brochure sat on my desk for all of 10 days, and I said, I'm sure glad I have that brochure, because Dover has suffered a couple of big losses, as have many, many other communities across the United States. We don't even hear over our borders, you know, what's going on even 2 towns away. And I'm not sure we all know exactly how to respond. So Whole Life Healthcare wanted to create almost like a pilot program tonight, and I do think we have a nice selection. I know that Trinity's coming, so we're going to have a representative from the high school age. We've got middle schoolers. I know Rebecca has worked with elementary school, Manchester, and my real attraction to how this all works at Whole Life Healthcare is that Rebecca has a 15-year experience as an EMT, and she's going to tell you her story and why and how she believes that healing trauma, like I agree with you, helps prevent future losses and moving forward. So thank you very much. That's how I met our presenter tonight.
Yes, and it was lovely. It was wonderful. I'm so glad to be here with all of you and to have you show up to take and empower yourselves with these tools. I know that the topic of trauma is scary, and it is something that oftentimes is brushed away. Like, we'll deal with it later, we'll deal with it later. And so I want to just start with my story so you can see that I kind of know what I'm talking about when I show up in this space. Because with my 15 years as an emergency medical technician in a 911 and a critical care and in prenatal care situations, I have an extensive knowledge of how things can get out of control fast, and from the personal and the professional aspect. And I grew up in a home where my parents had everything together, but my father had mental illness. And then I went into schools, and we had different situations arise in the school system that I was in with different students, with different outside traumas that took place, and everyone said, we'll just deal with it later. And it never got brought up. And from the 911 aspect, we always would say, oh, I'll deal with it later. But then the bell rang again and we went out again. And then the next call happened and the next shift happened and somebody else needed something and we didn't deal with it. And so in 2011, I ended up disabled. I ended up at home. I ended up in 10 out of 10 pain. And what it all came back to after 4 years of being disabled was not dealing with the traumas that had escalated throughout my whole life. It wasn't just a window of trauma, it was everything had come crashing down because I had stopped spinning the plates. And so I ended up being able to, thankfully, come into the space of learning holistic tools to empower myself and release some of those emotions, release some of those traumas, and empower myself to let go of that. But it happened at the most beautiful time because in that space I had 2 babies. And now they are 4 and 5. And I'm like, whoa, where did that go? But they now are utilizing those tools even at 4 and 5 years old. They tap, they utilize Jinsen Jitsu, they emotion code, they do all the things, which I'm super ridiculously proud of, but that shows me that 1, It doesn't matter what age you're at, everyone can use these tools. And 2, kids don't do things that don't work, period. So if they're utilizing the tools, we know that they work. If they use the tools by themselves without needing to be coached, and you can just look across the room and go, "You good?" And your 5-year-old's going, "I'm good." You go, "Okay, this works. High five, Mom." So in that aspect, I like to share these tools. And like Hillary's already said, I've gone to other school systems where they've had losses and they've had tragedies, and we've implemented different situations where we can learn 4 tools that you can implement at any time, anywhere, to help yourself find balance. And these aren't tools that are just brought up from somewhere to be mindful of a situation. We want to be mindful in everyday life, right? But these are tools that have been proven scientifically. Our government uses them. SWAT teams use them. We know they're not using things that don't work, right? If they're using them, we know they work. And it allows us to take back the power of our emotions. It allows us to empower ourselves in emotional stability and emotional balance, which at times can get a little hairy because we have social media, we have outside sources. And so I want this night to be more of us utilizing tools, doing tools, experiencing the tools, so that you can really lean into these when it comes down to, I'm having a day and I don't know what to do. Because that's really what it comes down to, is one loop after another of day-to-day life that builds up on us, that takes us to a space of where we show up one day and go, how did I get here? Why did this happen? It's really, if I sit down and do some self-care right now, if I sit down and show up for myself right now, if I sit down and implement a tool, even if it only takes me 2 minutes, I can cut the loop and I can change directions. And so the first tool that I like to share is one that everyone and anyone, as long as you've got hands, can do. And it's Ginseng Jitsu, and it's ancient Chinese medicine, and it's about balancing your emotional state through your hands. And you easily just take and put one hand on the other, hold your thumb till you feel your pulse. And when you feel your pulse, you move to the next finger. And when we start doing this, it might take us a little bit longer to feel our pulse. That discourages people right off the bat. But here's the thing, it's because we're out of balance. It's because our left and our right are so disconnected. It's because we're in the space of, we haven't practiced this, it might take a minute. And so you just hold, breathe, and feel your pulse. And when you feel it, go to the next finger. When we move through all our fingers, and we move through all 10, because we're going to do right side and left side, because we want to balance our masculine and our feminine. We want to go both sides. We also are balancing, our thumb is for fear. Our index finger is for worry. Our middle finger is for anger. Our ring finger is for guilt and sorrow. And our pinky is for judgment. And we can all relate with all of those things on any given day, right? And so if you find yourself in the space of feeling one of those more than the other, like you are extremely worried, or you're in fear, or you're having anxiety, or life just seems overwhelming, if you hold your thumb, you can help balance that. You can help bring yourself out of that space, because when we're holding our fingers and we're feeling our pulse, we're also connecting with our meridians. We're also connecting with each one of your fingers, links up with organ systems. Each one of those organ systems supports an emotional state, an emotional space. And so when we're doing this, we're literally taking our entire emotional balance, our entire being into our hands, and showing up for ourselves to balance our life. And it's that easy. It doesn't take very much. How many of you have already felt the ease of that? Yeah, you're like, I like that one. That's easy.
What was the ring finger again?
The ring finger is, oh, now you got me out of order.
You start over.
Yeah, so thumb is worry, index fear, middle is anger, ring is sorrow and guilt, and pinky is judgment.
And thumb is fear or worry?
They're interchangeable.
Oh, okay, they are. Okay.
Yeah, I find they both affect that space.
On both hands.
On both hands, yep. They're same emotions on both sides.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Is there typically a stronger hand dominance for, like, if I'm having trouble on my right hand, would my left hand be more,
It doesn't seem to. I have yet to have that come up, but I have recognized that most people will use their dominant hand to go across first. I do like to encourage people to go opposite because you're breaking a neural pathway of a set habit, and when you do that, you can reset like new habits more easily, and that's a fun thing. I like that. That's fantastic.
Is there a certain place you're feeling a pulse?
No,
Like in the
just
finger
the
or
whole.
in the
You want to feel it on your finger, not on your palm.
on the finger it's being
Yep.
held?
On the finger being held. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, when you first start, you might start to feel the pulse on your hand, but if you're not feeling, because I know you're going, I don't feel anything.
I'm not, but I have issues and they're documented. So.
Yeah, circulation and the fact that you're out of balance will make it take longer. The first time I tried this a few times, I was like, I told my husband, I'm like, I think it's broken. And he's like, no, you're just that out of balance. And now I can, under a minute, I can feel my pulse and I'm like, okay, that's better. But it starts to work very quickly when you're utilizing it regularly. And I like to do that every day just because why not be balanced every day, right? And
What do you call this? Like,
it's Jinsen Jitsu.
One more time?
Jinsen Jitsu.
Jinsen Jitsu, yeah.
And so the other tool that I like to use is breathing meditation. I do a meditation every single day. I host one live on Facebook every single day. And I like to utilize the box method. It's breathing in a box. It's 4 breaths, 4 breaths. It's real easy. Breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold, start again. And I do this one specifically because SWAT teams, fire departments, anyone who's trained in that aspect, you're taught this. They don't call it that before you're going off into anywhere, but I was like, hey, wait a second. I remember when I was at Fire Academy, they had me do, and then I was like talking to a friend and he's like, oh yeah, the SWAT team does that. And then I Googled it and they're like, yeah, SWAT teams use that method to get focused, to get balanced, to recenter, to regroup, and to reground before they take other people's lives into their hands. I'm like, so it works. So it's really easy and we can all do it. And it's literally just for a 4 count, like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, breathe in. Hold. Exhale. Hold. And that's it. That's all it is. If you find yourself doing 3 to 5 rounds of this, it can be extremely beneficial. Breath is the recharge, the reset of your body. And when you're inhaling and exhaling, you're recharging your body, but you're also letting go of things that just are not serving you. And I know that sometimes that feels a little weird to some people, but that's what our body does. Our body knows how to detoxify itself. So when we give it the opportunity to do that with deeper breaths, because now in today's society, we are shallow breathers. They call us shallow breathers. And I'm like, bummer. So we have to practice deep breathing. We have to practice that tool. And when we do it, you can see significant changes in circulation, in focus, in general emotional stability, which is also fantastic because that's the whole point, is emotional stability. So we're not riding a roller coaster through life.